Okay, so my name is Dustin, K2EFX, and so I've got 20 plus years in the technology sector. I worked for Pepsi for a really long time doing critical soda delivery stuff. And I spent a bunch of years in research and development there with embedded devices and computers and stuff. I did a bunch of stuff as a wedding photographer. One of my rooms is actually here tonight, which is just absolutely awesome and wild. And with that, this is really an entry to ham from sideways, because I didn't start being a ham. I was all Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, other frequency type things, and Ed wrangled me into getting me involved here. So it really is a traveling perspective on how I got here. All right. When we talk about software-defined radios, these are devices that are cheap, that can handle some frequencies, and you're offloading your compute to the PC. That's the key, is offloading compute to the PC. And so as you operate, you can have this little $40 device tune some frequencies, and depending upon how much money you want to spend, you can tune more frequencies. But from the ISM band perspective and the frequencies that I usually monitor, in that I get it wrong all the time, and it'll throw something at me, 2 meter and 70 centimeter. It's really neat. Those are the repeaters that new hams can hit right away. I don't hear many of you guys on them. Hint. But that's really cool, right? Is that those repeaters are out there to let somebody with a $12, $50, or $200 radio hit out there. And so it's super neat that now for $40 you can scan on that in your computer with a very simple antenna. You get fancy with it. I'll show you some very fancy in-depth stuff. But that's really the key. And I look at it as a way to, as a almost like a gateway into ham, right? Or other frequencies, because SDR really allows you to break that down. Gary, how am I doing? Give me a thumbs up, Gary. I'm good. All right, thanks, Gary. So you have a different flexibility with these lesser radios. Of course, you can find a Retivis or a Baofeng that may give you a waterfall or at least a scanner or an SDR, but you can do this with a $40 device or $45 come with a kit, and you can just scan some frequencies. And so I'm going to talk about SDRs here. I am going to make a wild right turn in the middle of this conversation to talk about all the other things that are kind of non-ham things. And so you guys just have to buckle up and ride along with this, and I'll answer any questions you got. But this slide, again, is just a lot about just this offloading, this $40 device. They started as TV tuners, right? Somebody figured out that they could tune a bunch of other frequencies. And so this RTL SDR, which is the most popular one, somebody even has it up front here in the table that you guys can't see on the mic, on the Zoom, but he's got it. You still can't see it because the camera pointed at me, is as we walk through, it's just a quick way, right? You could go to your thrift shop, get a $70 laptop, throw Linux on it, right? So you don't ruin your home laptop or your home computer that your wife or your girlfriend might pay the bills on. You certainly don't want to deal with that headache. But then you buy a $40 device, and you have a lot of opportunity to play around with listening to these frequencies. So I got a little bit deeper in spectrum analysis, right? So you get these big waterfalls, and now you can kind of look at what's happening around you, what's in these frequencies, and you can tune it. So if there are really serious hams here, right? You guys have radios that already have those waterfalls on them, so you've seen it before. So as you're hunting and pouncing, or whatever you call it, as you look for your signals across those spectrums, you see the same thing in these waterfalls, and I'll have some screenshots here. This is not an interactive demo, so good luck. But these SDRs could do a lot of things. So we talk about AM/FM, right? It's just very basic AM/FM. This is how I learned that I needed an FM block on my home antenna for doing SDR receiving, because I was getting just killed by that FM station that's nearby, right? So little things you pick up on as you go. You could do the NOAA weather stations as weather updates. You can use an SDR to capture stuff from satellites for weather from the satellites, actual pictures of weather satellites. And that's a little trickier if you have if you have an antenna, you got to might point as a satellite goes by. You can use an Omni and leave it in your front lawn and see what you can capture. But again, these are all different things that you can kind of see other than just the ham radio, amateur radio signals. So really how I got involved in SDR, and this is even before I became licensed or even interested in ham radio, is that there was somebody doing P25 trunk scanning for Suffolk County Police. And they went away. I don't know where they went. They stopped doing it. And so I was super interested in how could I see those, how could I see that frequency? How could I see that stuff? And you go to radioreference.com and you go find somebody that's done all the work for you. They've figured out what the P25 control channels are. They've figured out what the simulcast frequencies are. They've figured this all out. And that really hit a rabbit hole for me. I dug in really, really deep. In the HRU presentation I gave of these slides, somebody pointed out that they could do it with a $700 scanner. Yes, you can. Somebody pointed out that they could do it with free software and an SDR, and yes, you can. Those are all options that you have. I did take it to a completely next level. I show you that a little bit more later in the slides. But there's other things. So that was how I got kicked on, right? That's how I got kicked into this SDR. How could I go find these simulcast frequencies? In Suffolk County, they haven't gone encrypted yet. So the P25 is still very open. So I can see all this data and all this traffic coming, all this audio and control channel coming across. There's other things that you could do with SDRs where you could hit these over-the-air packets, right? POXAG, those are pagers, right? I am not a lawyer. I am not your mom. I am not your parents. Don't do that if you don't think you should be doing that. POXAG is a one-way. We are in a one-party New York state, but again, that is still data being transmitted. But if you get really super deep in some of the SDR software, you can decode a PRS. You can decode the POXAG pagers if you're close enough to somebody transmitting that. You can see that. Again, I don't really recommend you doing that. I would buy some other equipment and play with that at home if you're really, really interested. So we talk about, inexpensive, this RTL SDR V3. I do recommend the V3 over the V4. There's a couple of different reasons that I don't think you guys have to get really deep into, but the V3 is really the model that has got the best driver support across the operating systems. There's a new elect version of the same chipset. It's a little bit pricier. It's shaped a little bit different. So if you start getting into multiple SDRs or if you start getting into other things, they fit a little bit better in USB hubs if you need to. And again, I'll show you my crazy setup later on. All of these are receive only so far. There are other expensive models, AirSpy and SDR Play. SDR Play had a big table at, I think, Dayton. They had a lot of stuff there. You might have seen it if you went to that convention. And again, this is still all receive only. And then you get larger bandwidth the more you pay for it. So if you want to see a wider spectrum of bandwidth, multiple megahertz across, you end up buying higher end SDRs. So you do have to make a decision on how you want to figure out what to do and where to go with this so that you can come up with your budget. But very easily, bounce back here a second, this $30, $40 for a kit. The $40 kit comes with like a couple of antennas. It gives you some options for different frequencies across the spectrum, right? 24 megahertz width, and you've got 1766 megahertz top end, right? That's 1.7 gig. I don't know what we're doing in 1.7 gig, but really in terms of being able to see spectrum, that's kind of neat, okay, for $40 in your laptop that has a battery that you can walk around the house with or take to the beach or on a trip or on a boat. Because you can also decode ADS-B, you could decode AIS, right? All that is in that same ISM type frequencies that are all happening in there. There are pieces of software-defined radio that can transmit, okay? This gets a little sketchy. I'm not here to ask you guys to put on any tinfoil hats. I'm not here to talk about hacking specifically, but you can replay things that you've received. So you could see something in the air, receive it, capture it, decode it, and replay it. Now I'm being recorded, so I don't know why you would want to do that, but maybe you want to retransmit something. And that would be giving you the opportunity, if you wanted to capture your garage door being opened, and then you wanted to try to see, could you replay that to your garage door that you own? You wanted to see how that could work, right? There are some other things that happen in there, rolling codes and things like that on more advanced garage door openers, but I guarantee not a lot of people are, getting too advanced in their garage doors right yet. So again, now we enter if I'm going to transmit on those bands, do I need an amateur radio license? Kind of feel the answer is yes. Kind of feel like there's probably a lot of people out there doing it without a license. And they're doing it probably because they don't want anybody to know they're doing it. But in the end, that's how I got connected. George, sir.
If you're going to do this mission, you don't have a license. It's legal if you're below the power limit, which is private regulation. And if it's within the ISM. Okay, it's just kind of like Wild West radio license required once you stick with the
Awesome. So George just explained that we could probably land within the right power frequency.
Other frequency ranges, unless it's in an amateur band and you have a license, you become fodder for being caught. Chances of being caught are pretty low. They're not zero.
But then we can get into fox hunting. So, I don't know if anybody else is monitoring the Zoom. I thought I heard some beeps, but I wasn't sure if we had a specific question.
No questions yet.
Okay, thank you very much, Gary, for being my sidecar helper here.
Yes.
We go into, I don't want to see myself. That's the last thing I want to see. All right, put it back on Gary. There you go. Gary, don't do anything crazy because you're on the big screen. So we go into software, okay? So a lot of the software is free. It's open source. A lot of people spend a lot of time doing it. The SDR++ software is open source. It's free. It's even better than free like a puppy. It really is free. Somebody puts in a lot of time and effort to do that work. It operates on Linux and Windows. So if you wanted the same interface on both your operating systems, you can get away with having that software there. The files also go back and forth in SDR++. So if you create bookmarks or anything, you have favorite frequencies you like to look at in SDR, you create bookmarks and you can walk through that. I have some screenshots in a little bit. And then there's this other tool that's only on Linux, also open source, this GQRX. When we talk about GQRX, I don't really get into it here. That is where you're going to do some very advanced things. If you want to decode things very specifically, if you want to operate and see things that are really in the air that may be data, might be other things in there, that is where you will use that tool. I don't feel comfortable presenting on it because I am not that good with it. But that is where you can go find yourself a 30-minute YouTube utility, YouTube video, and get in a tutorial and find a new rabbit hole. Is definitely a cool piece. A lot of the products will all do full waterfall and spectrum analysis. You have all your regular tools that you're used to, tuning, squelch, controls, all that type of stuff. And a lot of them will let you hit a button and record if you wanted to record and listen to something later. I do recommend, running that if you want to get super crazy. So if we jump back to where I went with this, I really wanted this P25 system, and I found this program called Trunk Recorder. It is advanced. I do share all of my configs for the Suffolk County P25 if you wanted to do this yourself. You don't have to because I am sharing it across the internet, and there are other people in Suffolk County that I learned just recently also doing it as well from a broadcast perspective. But again, this was the rabbit hole that led me this deep into SDR. It led me this deep into getting here, and it, in parallel caught Ed to chase me down to become a ham radio operator. This is a multi-software defined radio setup right now into an antenna. I can talk about this ad nauseum. There are pictures here. There are pictures on the GitHub. Actually, I think there's pictures on my QRZ page. Ed likes it when I update that page. So when we have that, that just gives you the opportunity to look at more frequency. When we talk about these SDRs, we have a scenario of limited bandwidth. So if you want to see more bandwidth, you want to see more spectrum, you need more SDRs. And what I learned the hard way was that the Suffolk County radio system's got frequencies from control channels for P25 all the way to the audio channels across the spectrum too large for my single SDR. So I needed more than one. We're getting advanced. Just buckle up because we're gonna get easy again. So again, that was my rabbit hole. And so what I usually ask anybody that's even slightly interested in this is find your rabbit hole and you will learn, right? And I'm going to show you some stuff in a little while that I hope, finds a rabbit hole for you or helps you find a rabbit hole. So just some very clean screenshots of SDR++ if you've never seen it before. Again, I don't know what it looks like back there because I haven't looked. It looks good enough for radio, I guess. And so when we look at how this operates, you have your waterfall, you have your spectrum pieces, you have all your parts. This is the max bandwidth that you can see. It even helps me learn which frequencies are where, because I can't get it straight. What's a 2 meter and a 14 meter and 11.5 meter? I have no idea. I can't keep it straight. So when I look at this, I can now go left to right and go, oh, there's the air band, and this picture is air band, right? This is FM broadcast. This is after I installed the FM block. This was really ugly when I had, before I had the FM block. So I guess I mentioned that 3 times now, but an FM block is to block all FM broadcasts. I'm not sure if everybody knows that, but it's a filter you could buy, I think, for like $20 or $40, and that'll help you just cut out some of that amplification of the FM broadcast. How are we on time, and how in does your Zoom in?
No limit on the Zoom.
All right. Thank you, Gary, for paying attention. I almost caught you sleeping.
Yeah.
I'll try again in a moment.
Yeah.
So SDR++ is another app here. This is another shot of the screen where we're in this 853 frequency range. It doesn't give me a bar, so I don't know who owns that frequency range in terms of like what it is. Somebody more knowledgeable will tell me, but this is the band of where those Suffolk County radio simulcasts are happening in. And so this is tuning into just one of their broadcast stations. I am not fluent enough P25 to give you a complete example or a description of what P25 is, this trunking radio. My most basic explanation is that control channel will tell all the radios where to go to listen or transmit as things happen. And so what this build I set up does with this trunk recorder application, also free, also open source, just very advanced, will actually listen to the control channel and decode what's happening and then go tell an SDR device to go tune to that frequency and record it or broadcast it or play it or put it in this little window down at the bottom right. You can go to like your internal web page inside your house that's running on this little software to go see what it is, right? So this happens to be the P25 Fire Rescue Ops 3, whatever that happened to be whenever I grabbed that screenshot was happening. So again, this is what my rabbit hole was. We can get deeper, right? As we talk about some of these bands that I don't really have an antenna or a setup at home yet for. What is 7 megahertz in what? 40 meter? I cheated because it said it there. Isn't that 40 meter band, right? So you can get other SDRs that drop down and can see that frequency cleanly. They're expensive. Again, this is being recorded, so I'm not going to give a dollar price because I don't want anybody to know how much I spent on it, but the device is there. You can go look it up. And you can find an antenna and you can find an amplifier for it, and you can do some filtering and some amplification and start seeing these frequencies even lower with other SDRs. This is just receive, right? But this is helping me understand what does that frequency sound like? Who is on it? Where are they coming from? What does it look like, right? This is super noisy to me. Is this always supposed to be this noisy? I'm not asking you to answer those questions. This is just my thought process, right? In terms of, this is what I'm seeing. I don't know what this is going to look like. When I finally get my FT991A running, am I going to see anything like this? I have no idea because I've been lazy and I haven't gotten the 991A running. But once I do, this will help me at least give me a gateway into what I might be hearing or what I might be seeing. And if you just wanted to set up a receive box, you also now could do that with this tool, this software. This is software called, I think, SDR console from this, that's supporting this RX888 Mark II device. And here I mentioned I'm using this, that's a typo. Oh, it's a dual antenna, sorry. So for HF, I've got, I'm gonna screw it up. Somebody's gonna have to throw something at me. For one set of frequencies in that 40-meter band, I've got one antenna, which is that MLA 30 antenna that has a built-in LNA, the linear.
Low noise amp.
Thank you very much. Low noise amplifier. I wish I had gifts to give out. So it's good participation. So when we look at how that works, that's this antenna that's just a big loop, and I've sometimes just throw it out in the front lawn on a little stick to just see what I could get. I run the wire into the house, connect it to one side of the of this SDR, and then tune away and just see what I could hear. Right? It's really noisy, and I haven't gotten an ear for any of it yet, so I haven't really heard or listened to anybody talk all that much. But again, learning without having to get the radio up, learning without even having a ham license technically, right? I'm just receiving here. So, okay. So you may want to use the waterfall for troubleshooting, okay? One of my most favorite repeaters, which should be my club repeater, but it's not. One of my most favorite repeaters is the WR2UHF, I think it is. And that's connected to the East Coast reflector, which is really nice because when nobody is on any of the repeaters that I can hit, I can still kind of reach out and get farther across the US and even the world in order to hit that. But if we look, and I'm not gonna stress any demo gods here, but when you look at this spectrum analysis, does everybody see all those ugly spikes? Right? I got something ugly happening in my house, right? My anytone doesn't want to. It's not. So it's a great question, right? So where is that coming from and how do I find it? So I have this entire system set up that's very fixed base in the house. I can't move it, right? I see it on that system. So then I set up a whole other software defined box with an antenna to see if it's happening there. And it's happening there too. So now I know it's not embedded or inherent in my whole fixed base system because I've got it happening in a completely other isolated system. And now when I take that whole setup and get somebody to drive me away from my house, it goes away. So now I know it's like coming from inside the house. Yeah, right? So these are different things that you can kind of do with software-defined radio where you could go, I got this stupid noise. I know they sell $1,000 worth of gear to go investigate this stuff, but for $45 and a laptop, I can run. George has got a question. Go, George.
Most people do, they see all those ugly spikes. You go to your electric panel box, they turn them off one circuit at a time.
You must have saw my presentation, that HRU. So my whole gap now is I'm going to start doing that, right? I am now going to troubleshoot the house noise of what's happening with this. I'm going to put one of these, I'm going to put one SDR running that's in the base station of the house, set up and going, and I'm going to take the mobile one and put it in another section of the house, and I'm going to start flipping breakers in the house to see what happens. Now, I've got a significant amount of
everything breaks. Unplug lighting devices, devices that are plugged one in the top. Start with the simple stuff first.
Yeah, so start with the simple stuff first. We could start with start with just lights. We could start with just Christmas lights. I have a full 7-foot server rack in my home office. I'm doing a lot of other stuff, and so what I need to do now is to kill all the breakers and see if I still have the noise. And now I've got to go one by one and start turning off network equipment, server equipment, UPSs that are sitting in the bottom of that provide me power from when the power goes out type of stuff. I've got to go do that. But again, where would I go to do this if I didn't have a $40 software-defined radio? Probably go to YouTube and they would tell me to buy a $40 software-defined radio. But here's where we are, right? Here's you being able to track that down. So if we equate that to your ham shack, right? When you're in your ham shack and you got a noise, are you pulling your radios out? I think that's the last thing you do. I've seen some really nice setups. Like Gary's got a wall of awesomeness behind him. I don't know if that's real or a Zoom background, but I'm going with it's real, right? So if he's got a noise, if he wants to fire up a Yaesu from 1932 and he's got a noise, he's not pulling that box out of his whole beautiful wall. He's probably going to need another way of doing it. And this is kind of where I'm taking this piece. Once I get my Yaesu, whatever, fired up and mounted and everything, I'm not going to want to mess with it. I'm really not going to want to mess with it. I'm going to want to take the $12 laptop I got at Goodwill and a $40 radio and go walk around and see where this noise might be coming from. So this is just one example of what you could do. You could use scenarios like this with a directional antenna, and you could use software-defined radio to help you with fox hunting, right? I don't know if that's a thing that everybody really does. I do it in the hacker community. We have a lot of fox hunts that happen at the security cons where somebody's walking around with like a little thing beaconing, and then somebody's got to go find them and win some free internet points, right? Same with fox hunting for amateur radio, right? So those are things that you can see right there. Now, there are other advancements. You can get a thing on your laptop, and then you can get the screen on your phone. There is a spider web of chaos you can get yourself involved in. But from when we look at just some very simple stuff of what you can see, I think we have a generation of visual people that want to see things happening, whether that's live pictures or animations or anything happening real. You could very easily fire up a software-defined radio and start digging through. 833. So again, this is that second part, right? So the first part on the left is the home base station with that noise. And the picture on the right, which again, this is an eye chart and very horrible to see. You guys could look at the slides when you download them when they send you from the club. You have this whole scenario of there are those spikes again in the other laptop. That's a whole other laptop, a whole other SDR, a whole other system in a different part of my office that has these spikes, right? So I know it's at least not the same monstrosity that I built for this home software-defined radio stuff that I do. All right, I told you there was going to be a quick right turn. It's hard and heavy, and here it is. So now we can look at other things. What other things are out there, and what tools will decode them? So the RTL SDR software has a command line tool that will give you, readouts and GUIs of things that the RTL SDR is seeing, but it's not, I don't love it. It's not super intuitive. It's not super great to use. It doesn't save a lot of stuff. You've got to do some other finagling. So I want to automate the finagling with different finagling, if you want to buckle up and follow me here. So that's where we come up with Kismet Wireless. Now, the history behind Kismet Wireless is like, this is 1999, 2000, a computer hacker guy, Dragorn, builds this Kismet Wireless software for Wi-Fi war driving. So we're talking about 1999, 2000. Wi-Fi is just starting to peak, just starting to kick off. People are setting it up everywhere. People are plugging it into things they shouldn't be plugging it into. But here we are, we've got Wi-Fi on networks, okay?
Painting X's and O's on walls.
Painting X's and O's on walls. So when we look at that and we start mapping that, Kismet Wireless starts this tool where you're going to see Wi-Fi devices happening. And over the 20-something years that has happened, that has brought into a lot of other radio frequency things. So if you're not interested in chasing down your Wi-Fi and you're not interested in chasing down your Bluetooth, maybe you want to do easier automated ADS-B beacons. Maybe you want to see stuff from planes that fly overhead, right? Dedicated antenna or a shared antenna, however you want to operate. Maybe you want to see something like that. Kismet Wireless will do that for you automatically with a GUI. I'll show you some pictures. It can also see other things. We go back to George talking about the ISM band, right? Does everybody know that their car TPMS sensors don't just talk to your car? They talk to all the cars. They talk to everybody that'll listen. They'll talk to anybody that'll listen. So again, automating this, you can fire that up and pour that information into Kismet Wireless. Kismet Wireless will take you a little bit of time to finagle and get running. I'm not going to tell you it's easy. It is probably the most best documented open source software out there for this type of stuff. If there is a question, it is answered in either the document or the config files you download. There is you compile it from scratch if you want to really get deep into Linux, or you can download it in packages into Ubuntu. which is a very easy open source Linux distro to get into, like a 24 dot whatever, throw it on a laptop, throw Kismet Wireless on it, plug in an adapter, and go to the web page. It hosts an internal website on the page. So if you're on that machine, you just go to localhost, or if you're on the network, you go to that IP address and you are in, all right? And you'll tell it to go connect to your devices. So I have, as you can imagine, a very elaborate system at home. But here is an example of an RTL 433 device connected to Kismet as a data source. So the top one, it really should be a different name, but it's not. So let's just call, that's just looking at the 433 ISM band. The bottom one is dedicated to ADSB. So this is now 2 SDRs into Kismet Wireless. I haven't opened up another screen or anything to decode anything heavy. I haven't done any hard work. I've just done the effort to get Kismet Wireless running on this laptop and plugged in my SDRs. I'm starting to lose everybody that's sleeping. So once we get everything into that and we get ADSB going, we can make our own maps, right? So we can now have our own, if you're used to FlightAware or ADSB Exchange or any of the other apps, websites that feed stuff, you could do something immediately local just to you. So if you are out on a HODA, SODA, whatever acronym you have for when you're not at home, but you're away, and you have a laptop and you have an ADSB antenna, you can see the planes above you. Maybe you're so far away that you don't even have cell coverage. Maybe you've really hit off the grid hard, right? But you want to see what's happening around you. There you go, right? You have your own map and everything will load. I'm sorry. You'll need internet to see the map, but you won't need internet to see the names of the planes that are happening. And it'll record it for you, so it's already in the log, so you can go back later if you really wanted to and Google that plane to find out what was above you. I have a couple of different setups here. This is just, this is an eye chart, even on here. So that's just another plane. I think I have 3 examples. And that's everything that I can see from Farmingville with a disc cone antenna in an attic. It's not the great way to do ADSB, but I'm making it work. Obviously hitting things that are very high in the sky and not really seeing much that's parallel to me. But every once in a while when the SCPD chopper flies over, I'll get a beacon. And every Sunday night, there's a medical transport that goes from Islip to Peconic. So now we go into what else can we see? Well, how about all the data from the tire pressure sensor that's driving past your house? Like its temperature, and I see the tire pressure is not listed. I must have cut it off in the screenshot, but it'll give you the temperature and tire pressure of that car tire, what that sensor's sending out. This is unique to those tires. This is unique to you. This is trackable in a way. So it's very neat and it's automated and it's in this tool as a GUI. George, go ahead. No, that happens in the computer.
Can you repeat the question? Repeat the question.
So Gary, yeah, the question was, does anything from the tire sensor equate to like position on the vehicle? And that happens all in the computer, right? You get a tire rotation real quick and somebody doesn't reprogram your stuff. Now the front tires on the other side and other tires on the other side, right? That's all got to be done in the computer or you could reprogram it with a $25 or a $50 device from Amazon. You don't see any of that stuff. But for me, who's doing everything, monitoring, driving past my house, I don't care what side of the car that tire's on. I just want to see 4 of the same. I want to see 4 come through and I want to see how many times you've been in my neighborhood. Are you a neighbor? Are you a visitor? UPS, FedEx? What's really wild is the tire. I'm sorry? Other. Or Amazon trucks, right? What's super interesting is are the heavy trucks that come through. It's like an oil truck. Like that pressure, those tires are just like way, you think the sensor's broken or you think you're receiving it wrong. So again, these are all things that can happen. But what else is happening in this ISM band? Well, how about security sensors? How about your wireless security sensors that you decided to put up on all your doors or in different places of your house, where I can even identify which switch is open and which switch is closed? That's wild. But it's doorbell camera is usually Wi-Fi, But I mean, unless you're me and you're really crazy and you have it hardwired, because I would hardwire everything. I want to hardwire everything. But again, these are things that are happening in this band. What about water meters? Water meters are out there now. I don't know how it is in Nassau and Suffolk County. They drive a truck around and they read all the meters because it's broadcasting, right? But now we go back to the question before, where I'm not a lawyer and I'm not going to tell you to do anything, but SDRs can transmit. So how are people managing that data, right? That receiving of data. Now there's checksums and there's pieces that they should detect that you're manipulating that. But it's interesting. It's happening out there. And what's also interesting is that when the leaves fall off the trees, I could see more. So that's kind of interesting. Even though it's at, I forget what frequency it's at, either 315, 433, or 915, it's kind of interesting that it's sub-gigahertz. The leaves go away and I could see further down the block. And at my house, down the block actually has natural gas. So when all the leaves fall and it gets really, really cold, I could see gas meters beaconing the same type of stuff. And I bring us to Kismet Wireless because it's doing all the hard work for us. And it's doing it in a way where it's all in a GUI. We're not dragging ourselves through command line except for the setup of Kismet. After that, it's all on the webpage. It's all in the GUI. We could just monitor and see things around us from there. And these are the things that kind of kicked me off before I became a ham. I was doing all these frequency things before I was even interested in seeing Ed every week, right? So there's also a set of these things, these Accurite towers. I love these little remote sensors. They will feed your weather stations. They'll feed unique little devices. And so they all report too. I think it's in the 900 something, or maybe it's 433 something. Yeah, it's right here. And well, I'm pointing to the screen that you guys can't see, and then I'm pointing to the screen that they can't see. But in the middle there, we got a frequency graph, right? So we've got a frequency wave where we can kind of see where it's drifting in here and there. And we can see that whenever I took this screenshot, it was 29 degrees in my garage. I only know that's mine because I could find the serial number to tell me that that's the one that's mine. But I could see a bunch more. So I know what the temperature is in other people's places. It's kind of weird, kind of interesting. What else is out there? Right. So that's just why I think your SDR experience has to become your own thought process and path on what you're interested in and what's out there.
So I go with my neighbor's thermostat, turn his thermostat up.
We're not talking about changing anybody else's stuff that we don't own, sir. We're not changing anybody's thermostats or anything else, right? But it's all out there and it's all being broadcast and it's super, super interesting. You can tell the water, you can try to tell the water company there isn't that much water, but I am not going to tell you to play it that way. All right, we're almost towards the end here, and I just have a couple of examples of the crazy system I built. So these are temperature sensors. These are these Accurite models. There's a lightning model where it'll tell you if it detects lightning. That shows up in some of these graphs. And these are all GUIs in a web page. And what's great is that if you leave it running long enough, you'll see all the things that have happened all day. Okay? And you'll see all the things that have been beaconing all day and who carries different things with them. And that type of stuff is all out there. So I'm super not here for conspiracy craziness. I'm super not here for tinfoil hat stuff, but it does give you an idea of what is monitorable, what is visual to anybody out there that has a $40 device can just see these things. I found
UFO frequencies.
I don't know what band that is. What band is a UFO frequency? They're on 11 meters. So I wasn't far off before when I said 11 and a half. So that's these. Now, what really got me started was Wi-Fi devices, right? I was doing war driving. I was doing Wi-Fi capture in my day job. You know, we have a lot of facilities that require Wi-Fi capture. When I was at the soda company, we had a lot of things that required Wi-Fi capture to find out what was happening in these sites. Elliot, you got a question or am I muting you?
Absolutely. It provides
November 2. Oh, I don't know. N2HYD. Thank you, sir, for muting. So as we go through this, that's what's happening in Wi-Fi, right? That's all sorts of data that's happening in Wi-Fi. Now, when I capture Wi-Fi for work, I've already got the keys. I can already decrypt the traffic. When I drive by your house and I capture traffic, I don't care about it. I really don't. It's encrypted already. I'm not interested in it. I'm doing other things with the data with geolocating. Now, Bluetooth Low Energy is an interesting thing because along with Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, the device manufacturers like Android and Apple, they have started randomizing your MAC addresses, so you become less easier to track, and those rotate about 24 hours. But again, it's super neat to see how many devices are beaconing and just announcing their presence, even when like you're not even trying to connect to them. They're just announcing that they're there, and they're making those connections back and forth to other devices. You know, when I take a phone into Disney and come back with 100,000 Bluetooth devices, it's kind of wild, right? I only spent 12 hours there and I saw 100,000 Bluetooth devices. That's because I got a watch and a phone and another phone, and somebody else has got 2 watches. So you get multiple MAC addresses anyway. And now they're rotating. So did I catch somebody in their rotation time window? I don't know. It's kind of tricky to figure out. But again, these are all things that are happening out there, and Kismet Wireless with a compatible Wi-Fi adapter will show you all these things that are out there. A compatible Bluetooth adapter will show you what's happening out there. I don't really think you guys would get very deep into Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, but what Kismet Wireless will do is if you've got a system at home and you want to kind of see where all your neighbors' channels are, meaning their Wi-Fi channels, getting deep here, I'm going to dig us out in a moment, but you don't want to be on the same channels your neighbors are on. And sometimes your routers and your Wi-Fi devices at home, they just decide to be on 6 and 58. So then everybody on the block is on 6 and 58 for no real reason, right? And you then you're like, oh, I can't get Wi-Fi in the bathroom. So try changing the channel. It's my best guess. Or put your phone down and get a newspaper. All right, so this is a picture of that large build. This is really, really super advanced, but this is how deep I had to go to build these slides. This is how deep I had to go to capture all of the Suffolk County P25 system and record it and go back in time to be able to find things that happened in the past. You know, when you come home and all the police are at your neighbor's house and you kind of want to know why, but it's too dark to go outside to pretend you're sweeping. What are you going to do? I can go back in time to maybe 15 or 20 minutes before the police came and then listen to the 911 call or listen to the dispatch, not the 911 call, listen to the dispatch, right? Based on what they're sending out for. So in this diagram, and forgive me people on Zoom, I'm going to point to things. You guys can see the cursor there too. Excellent. Look at that. So now we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 RTL version 3 or version 4 software-defined radios into that program called Trunk Recorder, which is doing all the heavy lifting for the P25 system. That's another rabbit hole that we could talk about another time if you're interested, but Google it, dig through the YouTube tutorials. They'll do way better than I could describe it. But that's in one system. And then my Kismet rig, the Kismet server, is connected to another 6 software-defined radios. And those 6 are covering the 315, 433, 915 dedicated, an ADS-B, something else I've been playing with, and a backup that's on there just in case. Because I like redundancy so much that I have redundancy for redundancy. And on top of that, I do have 2 dedicated FlightAware and New Elec feeders for ADS-B as a test. So if we start from the beginning, because I showed you what the guts were. We're going to go back to the beginning just to give you the path, right? The disc cone antenna is in the attic, right? It's about 35 feet away from the whole entire system in the attic. It's delicately balanced across a couple of beams and some other random cardboard that's in the attic. It goes directly to that cable goes directly to an FM block I talked about before, right? I was getting squashed by FM. And then into the low noise amplifier device that covers 100 megahertz to 6 gigahertz, even though we're not using the whole spectrum. That's what was in the parts box. You use what's in your spectrum that you need, but that's like a 20 dB amp on that. That shoots that signal 35 feet to this magic device that I cannot explain how it works, but it is a antenna splitter. I have one antenna going into this splitter. It is feeding up to 16 devices at one time. They can all tune that antenna to what they need to in a magical world of physics that I cannot explain. I can't explain it. I'm only here to tell you that it works, and it works really well. Like, really well. I am covering everything from 2.4 gigahertz across this discone antenna all the way to the 315 band. I'm not looking at anything in the 100s. I haven't really gotten there yet, even though I can cover it. So that's the frequency range that the discone antenna can handle. That's what this frequency antenna splitter can handle. They're expensive. Look for them on eBay. I have had really great luck with them on eBay. This is a mini circuits version. I'm sure that there is probably an AliExpress or an Alibaba $30 version of this you can try first. Sure, one of those. You could try Temu, right? But this is what gives us the gut of the system to just have one antenna. So this is where I talk about, like, we're advanced here. We're super deep now in terms of being able to just fire up an SDR from wherever I am, tune to a frequency, and go. You can get here too if you try hard enough. I'm not sure I recommend it unless you really have hit a goal that you want. But this is what has allowed me to cover a wide spectrum at one time using one antenna. You can only tune to a frequency at one time with an SDR, so you really get stuck in what you could do at what time. So if you're really looking for something and you wanted to look for something on 315, you're tuned at 315. But if you wanted to look on something for 915, you have to stop tuning on 315 and go to 915. And in this scenario, I'm just allowed to do it all at one time. Yeah. So the question was, is that the reason why there's multiple SDRs here? And that's correct. So on the Kismet wireless side, I'm covering a device that's dedicated for Bluetooth on one port, a device that's dedicated, an SDR dongle dedicated for 315, another one for 433, another one for 915, and another one for ADSB, which is like 1090. Right? That's all in that same thing coming through the one antenna, just so that I could learn, but also now it's out of convenience. I'm doing ADSB in the bottom there too. I have a lot of recommendations for where you can go and what you could do for some of these things. I lost Gary. Was it Gary? I lost Gary in the window. Gary in the
No, we're
window.
here. We're here.
Okay, there you are. Gary, got him. Excellent. Okay, there you are. Yeah, again, the last thing I want to do is see me.
Recording in progress.
Oh, recording in progress.
Steve joined.
That's Steve.
Steve Greenbaum, how you doing? Okay, so that's it. I'm closing up here, and I'll take questions, and we can talk about craziness as much as we want. Yes, sir.
Okay, you're monitoring things like tire pressure and wind pressure. Do those things spit out characters, or do they spit out a voltage level, and you got to scale it so you know that 3 volts is 35 pounds per square inch, and 4 volts is 38 pounds per square inch?
An excellent question. The question was, what do those TPMS sensors look like as they send out that data? So it is all frequency modulated. And honestly, we are standing on the shoulders of the people who wrote the RTL SDR software. So the driver for the RTL SDR is doing all that work for us. It's taking the incoming RF, figuring out and decoding what all that data is. My gut is that anything that's happening voltage-wise is happening in the sensor itself in the tire, and it's reporting that over RF. Now, RF has to get demodulated and read and figured out, and then Kismet will read that data, or RTL SDR software will read that data that's already come through. But anything they're doing sensing-wise is happening in the sensor in the tire. I believe it is just spitting out actual tire pressure data. It's doing the work inside with the sensor. So the analog to digital is happening in a sensor, but it's transmitted over that 433 or whatever it is, 315 band, and then it's demodulated in the software of that signal happens on the radio and in the driver. Was there a question, Gary?
No, just so actually, I have a question. Are you saying that all those water sensors are transmitting on the same frequency? How could that be? How do they not interfere with each other?
So they are all on the same frequency, yes. They all drift a little bit ugly. So when we go back to so this is a good example in the temperature sensor, right? Because I didn't include it in that. So in the temperature sensor, in that packet frequency distribution of where the frequencies are, you can see that there's a number of packets happening in different frequencies. And it's the same with the TPMS sensors.
I see.
It drifts a little ugly. They're happening, but the probability of all of them happening at one time, I believe, is pretty low. I think I don't have enough information to kind of say what I know is happening. My gut is that they all just decide on their own time of when they're going to beacon. And depending upon how they're handled, they beacon on their own, right? You're going to send me down a rabbit hole. I'm going to want to know now. Thank you for that. But yes, so that's certainly a good question for what they're happening is.
And the plane's the same. Same question on the planes.
Yeah, I mean, they have headers, right? That frequency is going to get broadcast and it's going to have some header level in it. So you're asking the radio to see that transmission come through and to start decoding that transmission and see that it might have received part of header, what is that, ICAO hex number from a plane, and then see the other one partial. But it happens enough that I think it happens in enough frequency that I believe the software catches it and you don't see the collision, let's call it.
Gary, the same question. How does APRS determine which ham radio operators transmit?
Doesn't they all just squash each other? Gary, the question was, how does APRS handle that transmission? And my understanding was it's just a crap show.
All in the same frequency.
Probably you're using CDMA.
True.
Or like back.
Yeah,
right. Back over random there, right?
I think you guys have a lot of good feelings about what they might be doing in this $30 radio. I'm not certain. I'm not certain there's any collision detection in CDMA for APRS or any of these meters. I'd have to go look.
That is happening in the software. The radio itself is just receiving those frequencies. That's it.
Right. The radio receives all that garbage, and then the software has to figure out what it looks like after it's got it. So this final thing is just a portion of what that build looks like in terms of what's sitting on top of my server rack at home. This is that on the bottom right-hand side is the mini circuit splitter, and those are the SDRs that are sticking out of the USB hub.
A lot of dissemination.
4K question.
Yes,
Did you track down the source of all of your stuff?
I did not yet. So apparently people at home don't like the lights to go out when you want the lights to go out. So at home, because of the operations center that I run, I've scheduled some downtime, which happens to be downtime only when they're down and I'm awake. But yes, I have not yet. The plan right now is to turn off a bunch of stuff that I can control very immediately in the office. Because it's radiating past my curb, I'm not certain what it is, to be honest. I haven't figured it out. I have some enterprise level wireless access points in the house that I'm starting to suspect might have some resonating whatever magic happening inside them to create this, but I haven't gotten there yet. 440 is like really close to like 350 for Ethernet gigabit. What's the next step up for 10 gigabit, 2.5 gigabit? I'm running 10 gigabit at home. So it could be a number of those things. I just haven't gotten there yet.
Group them on one by one. You immediately know what circuit it's on when it comes back.
Yep.
I have a big roll of aluminum foil.
Oh, I was gonna suggest that.
Aluminum foil.
There you go.
Works every time.
Or is it a thing that builds up? My biggest problem, I think the way to tackle this is to do the shutdown and wait for it to go away in the event that it's something that only happens after things have been powered on a certain amount of time, right? Like I don't know where this is.
Maybe this radiating. Well, yeah, you gotta wait
But-
capacity power up their house and see if it's still there. It might be coming from a neighbor's house.
I hope it's coming from a neighbor's house.
Find the switch.
What, then you're gonna switch them off?
I'm going to turn them off. So we're just having a discussion here, folks, on Zoom about how to solve my problem, but it really looks like we're going to start flipping some breakers and hoping we don't wake anybody up or turn anybody upset. Any questions from the Zoom team members? Wow. Seeing me is like nothing I want.
You know, if you wait until summertime and had a barbecue, you get a lot of help.
I could.
Yeah.
Any other questions for this chaos? Yes, sir.
Do you hear me?
Yes, Elliot, go ahead, Elliot.
Well, one of the things I'm doing is down where I am in Florida, this apartment is a virtual parity cage. You can't get any reception. But on the internet, I get SDR Wi-Fi, and it gives me SDR from all over the world, different receivers all over the world. Have you tried that one?
Yeah, so I bought one of those web SDRs that you can the entire functionality of all the SDR stuff happens in the box, and it just serves you a web page that then you go and see, and it looks like the SDR tools. I have one of those. I haven't really gotten into it yet because I've got so many other ways to monitor SDR stuff at home, but I do really like that idea, especially because of what you're experiencing in terms of challenges with your own reception. You can
Oh, boy.
go and look at that stuff. And so what I want to do with something like that is I want to go make a kit with that little box and like a cellular radio and drop it off at my mom's house in Bayville, right?
But
And then
Glenn,
we'll see
what I'm talking about is
what do I see there? Go ahead, Elliot.
what I'm talking about is you actually get on the internet and you get onto where SDR.org, and SDR.org gives you a directory of SDR receivers throughout the world. And each of those can be connected to separately and tuned separately.
Are you sharing anything over the internet?
So hold on,
Have you-
just real quick to Elliot. So yes, Elliot, what I did was I own one of those devices that will do that. I just haven't connected it. I have used that tool. I forget, there's a couple of them out there that'll let you tune to SDRs that people allow you to connect to. I am,
We can do this right on the internet. This is connected directly on the internet. No boxes needed.
Using the internet to connect to an SDR around the world.
Yeah.
Using a browser.
Yeah.
When he uses his ham radio, he can see if it's reaching the receiver at the other end.
and I love that. I love the fact that you can now use that and connect to a browser to an SDR around the world and then hear if you're transmitting and able to connect.
Call out.
It's great.
9 seconds later, it comes back.
Worked well for me, thank you.
Oh, that's not too far away.
What was your question?
I was asking you, you mentioned you're in RX. That bad boy is pretty wild. That is something where you can take it and tune to every HF band or, amateur band in HF. And if you program SDR console, you can play them all at once. Now, I don't know a lot of people that have used for it, but I remember playing with one briefly and being able to watch or see if he can do all the bands at once. And it'd be great if you make that one band for UHF higher. That would save you a lot of deltas. You mentioned going around with a laptop and an SDR. There's something that I use to track down things, a tiny SA. Have you had one of those yet?
I have a lot of gadgets. So just for the Zoom folks, the commentary here was about this RX 888 Mark II has the ability to tune a very wide level of ham bands. So you can use one of these devices to see all of the ham bands, and then you can do your hunting and pecking for who you might want to tune to in general. Then the next question was anything about a tiny SA or any type of spectral analyzer. I have a couple of those. I haven't gotten deep into it yet. I kind of like the idea of using a small handheld and an SDR right now, but yeah, I have one of the spectrum analyzers that then I would just have to make a decision on what antenna could it connect to. Okay. So the tiny SA Ultra will go to DC to 5 point something gigahertz.
Are you sharing what you have out there that we could tune in to what you're listening to or no?
I don't have a full set out there. Do I not have the link here?
You feed.
So I do feed the P25 trunk system from Suffolk County Police, Fire, and even the buses are in that, even the non county buses. So that is openmegahertz.com, openmhz.com. You'll pick a state, New York, and then you'll find the Suffolk County link at the bottom. Now that I am feeding everything that is coming through that P25 system, which I have a control channel in there for the buses. And I forget, I don't think it's Suffolk Transit. It's like Babylon Town buses and some other bunch of buses that have open radios that are in there.
Are they interrupting police or they get police?
So the key about the trunk radio software, this trunk recorder software, is that it will tune one radio to something happening on the police. And if there's something else happening somewhere else, it'll tune another radio to that. And you will get a full in and out of everything, car to car, dispatch to car to dispatch, fire, EMS, and bus. Anybody that keys up and talks, there's no overlap. And that's just the magic of the trunk recorder software, which I was told at HRU, there's another program that'll do that. Great, good luck. But I'm embedded in the trunk recorder app. So yes, that's what I am feeding. To partially to what Elliot brought up was that I was planning to try to get that. I have the other 888 device, which will do everything in a browser, which is what a lot of people are doing to have those remote SDR sites, right? They'll put up one of these devices. The problem I have a lot of times with that is I'm in infrastructure and security. So I'm not hosting a web page in my home so somebody else can see it on the internet and connect to it. I am looking into multiple options of figuring out a way to enable that such that it's not you coming into my house automatically. I find a lot of things on the internet that shouldn't be on the internet. It's part of my job. I don't use that. But again, all those sites, right? Broadcastify, the live ATC folks, those are all people just like me, just feeding a system and them, eating the bandwidth of sharing it out to all of everybody. Any other questions? I have almost bored everybody. We're close. Thank you for not asking how much some of this cost.
We're not sure.
Thank you. Terrific presentation.
Thank you. Anybody else on Zoom? Is everybody okay? N2RQ, I didn't even hear from you. You have any questions? I'll caught you with the mouse in another window. Now you got to find unmute.
Yes, I did that. I thought it was fascinating, and I'm going to bring some of this. I know the recording will be available. I'm going to bring this to Brooklyn Tech, the W2CXN. I'm trying to get the kids there excited about all these new things. They're new to me, not new to you.
No, I love it. The slides will be on HRU. These slides are already on HRU. And if you have any questions or timing is a little crazy these days, but if you're going there and doing a presentation, let me know and see how I can help.
Thank you.
I have a question though. Is I see the piano, but is that the Ghostbusters logo on the big book? It's to your left, I think, on the piano. Is that Ghostbusters? What is that?
I don't know.
All right.
Well, who are you gonna call?
I don't know. That's where I was going. I was trying to make a radio joke, and it's not Ghostbusters. It's okay, Lou.
I think it's a music book.
Which makes sense. It's a piano. Okay. All right. I've given you guys enough hard time for not showing up to the meeting today. What anybody else on the floor here? Questions, comments, hatred, aggravation. Festivus is over, but you still have time.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you everybody on Zoom. I appreciate your time and sitting at your desk in your comfy little places, watching us be crazy. Still interested in Gary's wall of chaos there. I'm going to hit your QRZ page. I hope there's a list of all of that there.
Yeah, right.
In fact, if you could take a really high res photo of that so I could use it as my Zoom background, I would like that. I would like that. Gary, I think I'm handing everything back to you. George, I'm handing everything back to you.